Hi, I will be going over the Ventura Unified School District as part of my district profile, and my name is Michelle. Starting off with the actual district profile, this is the third largest district in Ventura County. So here's a list of all the schools that make up the district, including 15 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, 2 K through 8 schools, 3 comprehensive high schools, which include Buena, Foothill, and then Ventura High School, and then 1 independent high school, which would be the El Camino High School. So this is for students that um, could still get their credits, but however, they are more independent study students. Then you have a continuation school, which is Pacific High School. So this is more for students that have not found success in the comprehensive high schools. They have lower or smaller classes and a higher teacher to student ratio, and career technology education, which I will explain or talk about more later. And then there's an adult education program for individuals who would like to receive their GED or learn English as a second language. And then in terms of finding the mission statement on the school website or the district website was a little bit difficult, but it was all the way in the bottom and I finally found it, but this is what they stated. The Ventura Unified School District will educate all students in safe, healthy, and high-performing schools. We will inspire all students to excel academically, honor unique qualities and diverse backgrounds of all students, build supportive relationships, guide all students to reach their full potential, motivate all students to successfully pursue their chosen life path, and engage all students to become responsible and contributing members of society. So we'll be looking as I go on to see how the district addressed their statement. Looking at the demographics, again, a large district of 17,125 students make up the district. Of those students, 48% are classified as socioeconomically disadvantaged, and 51%, close to 52, receive free or reduced lunch. There are no numbers for foster youth or students with disabilities, but I understand based on teacher interviews that some schools do have higher concentration of these than others. For instance, Buena High School and Anacapa Middle School have, for some reason, a higher ratio of these two groups than some of the other schools. And then in terms of English learners, 17% of the students are classified as English learners. And looking at the left side here, all the languages that come from those homes as their first language. So ranging from Spanish to Russian, and then Spanish being the most popular at close to 93%, and then Arabic being the second most popular language at 3%. Looking at diversity, there are two groups or ethnic groups that make up the majority of the district, 51.8% being Hispanic or Latino, and white students at 39.3%. And this is actually a changing trend because they used to be flipped. And so now within the last few years, it's flipped so that Hispanic Latino students make up the majority of the population. Looking into finances, this is what I found in terms of multi-year projections. There aren't any set in stone budget numbers, and so there's an adjusted cost of living or COLA going up all the way to 2017-18 school year. The average daily attendance remained relatively the same because the enrollment numbers have been relatively the same within the last 4 years and anticipates for the next school year as well. And then you have a couple of the grants, Microsoft grant being one of the ones that's unknown because my understanding is that gets evaluated and readjusted on a year-to-year basis. Then looking into more specific breakdown on the budget for the 16-17 school year, classroom furniture, books, staff development, equipment, facilities, projects, and vehicles. So vehicles, I also know that that's specifically targeting school buses. And after interviewing one of the members or leaders of the teacher union, she said that the transportation system has actually, the district decided to set that aside because the buses were actually due for an upgrade a number of years back, but were pushed aside to make room for other more pressing matters, and so now they're going back to allowing more of the budget towards that. And then this is the multi-year projections for teacher salary. My understanding also is that the district and the teachers union are still in negotiations, so they did receive and extend in terms of the salary, but are negotiating because teachers want a higher increase in the salary. In terms of the LCAP, it's a 77-page document, and it's very extensive, very detailed, and they include about 4 to 5 goals that they want to meet. And for each of those goals, they have specific ways about how they're going to meet it, and then the money allotted to each of those points. So it's pretty extensive and very detailed. And so here are some of the things that are their priorities for the district. So including access to academic support services, specifically for low income, foster youth, English learners, and students with disabilities. And so there are 2 sections for professional development. One of these tied to the support services. So enforcing strategies to close achievement gap in math and English language arts for teachers, and then suspension alternatives. So instead of suspending students, looking for alternatives, and then engaging parent activities. So providing more opportunities for parents to be involved in their students' academic success. Looking at recent changes, one of the major changes, or multiple changes actually, is in personnel. The superintendent was dismissed of his duties midway through the school year, and so there was an interim superintendent until about a week ago, or 2 actually. They just named a new superintendent for the next school year, so that should be interesting if any changes come or things stay relatively the same. There are vacancies in the assistant superintendent levels and principals and assistant principals at several high schools and middle schools, and there are 2 new board members, so that sort of changes things in terms of the staff. And then at curriculum and technology, there's a new college and career course at the high school level. So what the district did is they got rid of geography as a graduation requirement for all freshmen, and instead of taking that, 9th graders across the board are all required to take the college and career course first semester, and the second semester they would do health. Then there's an increase in career pathways. So if there are students that want to pursue a pathway, these include things like automobile, nursing, welding, cooking, or carpentry, among others. There's a long list for the district. These students could still go to school, high school, and receive their credentials that go towards graduation, but 2 or 3 times a week, they leave school or campus early, and they have bus services that takes them to another site where they focus on classes that are more specific to their career pathway of preference, which is actually very cool. Then there's smart boards for each classroom. So within the last about 2 years, the district allowed a budget to purchase and install smart boards for each of the classrooms at all the elementaries, middle schools, and high schools. And so each school gets a week or 2 weeks, and so they send their technology guys and they install the smart boards in each of the classrooms, and they go over to each of the schools. And so I believe their goal is to be finished by the end of the school year. And then Chromebooks for each of the English classes, at least at the high school level. And so looking at some of the strengths, efforts in making technology more accessible are tied into providing teachers with access to the smart boards or implementing them into their classrooms. Also having an extensive budget or expanding the budget to allow for more Chromebooks and have more technology accessibility for all students. This district is not yet a one-to-one technology-based school, but it seems like it might want to go in that path. It's just more difficult because it's such a large district. Then there's an improvement of EL students in terms of the state tests in math and language arts. So the district is looking to improve that and continue that. And there's a variety of services provided. So one of them, for example, is a Latino family literacy project, which focuses on involving more Latino families in their students' academics. And then teacher grants or projects. So there's funding allotted each year where teachers are able to submit a project, whether there's project-based or lesson plan, and depending on who is the best, there's a list of teachers that receive grants for their submissions, and then the reserve fund. So the district actually has reserve funds sort of for like a rainy day. For instance, back in 2008, where you had the recession, where many districts were forced to give pink slips to their teachers, Ventura had a reserve fund. So while they were able to keep their teachers, they did have to cut on some of the salaries, but at least there was a higher teacher retention rate. Looking at the weaknesses, in terms of teacher support services, so for instance, the college and career course, after speaking to several teachers within the three high schools, some of the teachers had to be forced to go back and have an emergency credential in health, because college and career and health are taught in the same school year. So several teachers were very upset because they then had to be forced to go back to school. The classes and materials had to be purchased out of their own pocket, but were supposed to be refunded or reimbursed by the district, and some of the teachers could not afford that. So there was some concern there that this sort of curriculum it might be a good idea, but it was sort of rolled out with not enough teacher support. And so you have some teachers that are sort of struggling with this new curriculum and little resources. And then a concern over suspension. While the district side, including in their LCAP, does have a low suspension rate, and in comparison to the California rate, some teachers at various of the high schools and middle schools are concerned that yes, there might be lower suspension concerns, but they're having more problems in the classrooms in terms of disruptions and behavior, because there's a fear that maybe some of the administration don't want to have high suspension rates that are going to be reflective of the district. And then in terms of materials and books, I've spoken to some of the teachers that feel there aren't enough books available for them in their specific English learners language. And then teacher turnover. So some of the schools have higher teacher turnover rates than others, whereas several teachers have stated that they've seen teachers who should not have left because they were qualified leave because of things like tenure or because enrollment changes, and then school of choice. So this again affects some specific schools more than others. So where you're having more students having moved or transferred to one of the other high schools because of preferences, like maybe they have a sports team at that school or not, or a class that's not offered at another school, like Italian, for instance. And so that affects some of the schools where their enrollment goes down, and then they've had to cut back on teachers and even extracurricular classes for students more than others. And then just based on what I've mentioned in terms of weaknesses and challenges, some of my recommendations include establishing and enforcing more specific protocols in terms of those transfers to deal with the problem of the enrollment in some schools over others. So if there's a specific protocol about what students are not allowed to switch over to a different school just based off of a sports team or a class, so just so that it's more clear, and some of the schools are not left with lower enrollment rates than others, even though they're following sort of the guides of the district boundaries. More professional development, even though this district does provide professional development, having it more based on what the teachers need. So for instance, going back to that college and career readiness class, those teachers should receive professional development in that course. Improve book protocols. So just this year, the social science department was told that they were going to be receiving all new textbooks in their department, but the district made some mistakes in the terms of the budget, so they had to go back, and so they're kind of going back and forth in terms of the books. And then provide professional development on suspension alternative programs. So if the goal is to reduce suspension, then provide more development opportunities for teachers to deal with behavior problems, as well as for the administration staff, so that teachers don't feel not supported. And so these are the sources I use, and thank you for watching my presentation.